Hello and welcome back to another episode of Kickin It With KeKe, Life, Love, and Mindset. I am your host, Kiki Chanel, award-winning author and owner of 19 Lifestyle Magazine. This is the podcast where we talk about life, love, and mindset. Today, I am joined with a very special guest, and you guys know how I like to do. I like to give my guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. So, Jermaine, thank you for coming to Kick It With me and tell the people who you are.
Thanks for having me. Very, very grateful to be here, and thanks for giving me the space to introduce myself.
Absolutely.
I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I am first and foremost, I like to think of myself as a son to two very loving parents, and I'm also a proud brother of one sister and two younger brothers. I like to think of myself that way because when I think of all the important things in my life, it all kind of surrounds this feeling of being present for the people that I love. But outside of all of those things, I've built multiple businesses in the past. I am a very curious soul. I travel a lot. I'm calling in today from Europe, actually, where I spend most of my summers. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I love that. Well, thank you for being here all the way from Europe. It is amazing to have people like yourself that want to come and kick it with me on the podcast. So thank you again. And we always talk about mindset, life, and love because I think the three things intertwine. So we're going to get into the mindset moment right quick, where we talk about how the mindset shapes the experience that we have throughout our lives. So, what mindset shift changed the way you approach life?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I like to think that all throughout my 20s, like many, I would say like many men, we are trying to define success and how we fit into this world of materialism, of capitalism, right? This world that we live in that judges a lot of us based on what we can produce and what we can provide, right? So I think a lot of my 20s was spent figuring out how the world worked. I worked in politics for a while. I studied everything that I was curious about: economics, religion, political science, and business. And now that I'm in my 30s, I started looking inward a lot more. This
Mm,
whole thought of know thyself. I wanted to understand what makes me happy, what makes me fulfilled, what kind of relationships I want to have with the people I love. And I think I'm at the journey where I am having this mindset shift into how does that all fit together in this very finite time that we have. And I know this will come up. I lost my mom 9 months ago, and losing her is, I think, this trigger of what do I want to spend the rest of my time here doing? What really
mm,
matters. So that's the journey I'm on right now.
absolutely. And that's beautiful. Know thyself. If more people had that type of mindset, I think the world would be a better place because I too had to go on that journey where I lost myself once upon a time and I had to refine who I was, where redefine who I was. And I learned a lot of things during that time. So, what is one thing that you have learned since you begin that journey of knowing yourself that you would like to share with the audience today?
Well, one thing that I've been working on and getting better at is to narrow the opinions that matters in my life,
Mm,
right? So I am a weird soul. I have written my own eulogy when I was a young child. I was maybe 24 years old when I first did this. I had read somewhere some inspirational quote or some Instagram message that if you wrote down your eulogy, you hold up a mirror to yourself and you get to see what you really cared about. So I tried that, right? When I was 20s, I really wanted the recognition. I wanted the Forbes 30 under 30. I wanted all these things, the external validation from the outside. And right around COVID is when I turned 30. That's when I wrote my second time. And the second time around during COVID, I realized the list of the people's opinion who I cared about shrunk a lot. And then again, there's a theme here. After my mom's death, I did it again, right? Because I had to think about this topic again. Who shows up to your funeral? And that list is now not only has it shrunk even more, but now I hope and I wish that I have the courage to live a life where it's true to myself, not too influenced by by the people's opinion around me, right? And I think we're all social beings that we still need validation from the people that are around us, but the journey towards that, to live a life truest to what I want, that's the shift that I've had recently.
I love that. And that it's so funny that you said that you are a weird, weird person because I am weird as well. Shout out to the weirdos in a great way. I wrote my eulogy at the age of 25, but I have not done it since. And so you have just inspired me to go back and do it again because I'm 48 now. That's been a long time. So things have shifted, perspectives have changed, and I'm not the same person that I was. So that's a great place to be because not everybody is at that place where they think about transitioning, which we all have to do.
And I think it's
What
an
belief
ongoing journey.
it
It's
is?
one that we, yeah, it's one that we, we take a few steps and sometimes we lose ourselves, right? We
Mhm.
go too many days in a row and we don't catch ourselves falling in the trap of keeping up with the Joneses, right? It's human nature. But I think this new mission that I've been on is to do things like this, to share my story so that I hope it resonates with one person. And if it makes one person sit down today and think, ooh, actually, it's been too many days in a row that I am too concerned about the opinion of someone who actually does not matter at the end, right? That's like a little shift and a reminder, right? And I wish to surround myself with this reminder so that if I too get off course, that I get this reminder to bring myself back a little.
I love that. I love that. So, what belief did you have to unlearn in order to grow into the mindset that you have right now?
Yeah. I think maybe it's a combination of being Asian American as well as American, the American part of Asian American. I subscribe for a very long time this notion that to be worthy of loving, I had to be somebody who produced, who achieved, who is able to take care of others in a very material way, right? Los Angeles is probably one of the most material places in the world, right? We're talking, and I went to USC, so I'm comparing myself with classmates who are coming from families with money and have things handed to them. Not all of them, you know. So
Mhm.
I think this belief of to be loved just because of who you are, just for being, is something that I really had to have to figure out on my own. And I'm still on this journey, right? I still think about myself as not so much as my net worth or net output or these financial terms, but more so of I feel like I have to be there for someone to be deserving of their love. Like I have to do something for somebody in a friendship to be deserving of that friendship. And it's actually a influence of my girlfriend. She told me once when we started dating 4 years ago now, that in her family, you're loved just because. There is no reason. You don't have to be you don't have to be PhD, you don't have to be anybody who's doing anything incredible from the outside. You're loved just because. And I come from that family too in my small nuclear family. But everything from the outside in my world, the Chinese culture, is extremely, extremely materialistic. Right. So I think I had to unlearn a lot of these feelings, these subconscious narrative in my mind that in order for me to deserve love, I had to be successful.
Wow. Wow. As I've spoken with the last couple of guests on the podcast, you guys had something similar to say about the materialistic part because I don't know, have we become so superficial to the point where that matters most, what the people in our lives can give to us or bring to the table, so to speak. Why do you believe that is? Do you think social media plays a big part in it, or it's just in the air? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I think, this comparison is the thief of joy. We've heard that many
Mhm.
times, right? But sometimes it's hard to apply it to our own lives. I think I never really believed that. I think most humans actually think this, like, oh, branding doesn't work on me, right? But the truth is, if we see something too many times, we have association towards these things.
Mhm.
And to see, whatever that is, like someone on a vacation all the time, and I am guilty of that. I only post my good days, right? I only post the highlights of my life. And to see all these highlights all the time probably makes me feel that, oh, I've got to do more, achieve more just to have that. I think it's also interesting because, as you know, in the message that we reached out to you for, I'm building an app of estate planning because I wanted to help people organize what they have, right?
Mhm.
To have more clarity of where they are today. Because my hypothesis is that if you know where you are today, there's a higher chance that you will know what is enough in your lifetime.
Mhm.
To define what is enough is also to learn how to be content. And I think that's a missing skill in society these days. I am hopeful though. We speak of AI quite negatively these days, but if you think of AI and social media is the extreme. The negatives and the positives are the loudest. Everything on the edge. But in some ways, AI, because of it being a prediction tool, right? A tool that helps people kind of come back to the mean. By interacting with AI more, we actually get to bring ourselves back into the center a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Which is something about AI we don't talk about too often. It
Right.
is the average. It is a prediction tool.
Absolutely. And you jumped ahead because we're going to talk about the app. But yes, before we get into that, I wanted to ask you this last question in the Mindset Moment segment. What life experience forced you to grow the most?
I don't know if this is a me thing or is this a very, very common. I've always felt like an outsider, you know, growing up, perhaps between Malaysia and the United States. I've always felt like I'm the outside looking in. As I got older and I got to look back at the times where I felt like an outsider, I realized feeling like an outsider is a sign of growth, is a
Mm,
sign of ambition. Because if I'm always inside, that means I'm not growing, right? I've completely occupied the room of comfort. And as I'm maturing into this thought, I realize, you know what? I always want to be the outsider. The
mm,
question now is how do I quickly learn the lingo of the insider, the next destination I want to be? And what I've learned throughout, the last 15 years of working and navigating through the world is, I love putting myself next to people who are smart and people who I look up to. And I'll give a very concrete example. I went into politics for about a year and a half. This is around 2016. There was an election that really changed the trajectory of this country. And I felt that the world lacked empathy. I
mm,
felt that people, my good friends on the left and the right, could not talk to each other, right? They were just not hearing each other. And instead of sitting in the sidelines and feeling like an outsider to politics, I thought, you know what? Who's someone who I admire, who look like me, and who's smart? And I want to get as close to that person as possible. And that's when I found out this person by the name of John Chung. He was the state treasurer of California at the time. And through a series of cold emails and borderline stalking him, going to campaign events and things like that, I ended up landing a job with him. And it got me so much closer to the action of, seeing the world from quote unquote the inside. And what I realize is that the world is a very, very complex place, right? There's people who are we think are in the inside, who still feel like an outsider to many situations in your life. And I think this feeling of being an outsider, I learned how to embrace it. And this is a lesson that really changed the way I thought of everything moving forward, including what we're about to talk about, building an app in the legal space. A total outsider here.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And so thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable enough with my audience, with me to share that because you could have kept that to yourself or put it in a book or something or just saved it for the app so people can get it. But thank you for being open about that. I think that people need to hear things that are relatable and your relatability will help other people see that being an outsider is okay. Just don't stay stuck there being on the outside that you forget to walk inside sometimes because sometimes it's okay to go inside. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so we're going to talk about a heavy topic, loss, life, and mindset. What has loss taught you about life, love, and mindset?
First and foremost, it taught me that we're here for a very short time,
Mm.
and we don't know when that time is going to end. About 18 days before I lost my mom, we were in Salzburg, Austria together because she loves this movie called The Sound of Music. She was born in the 60s. Julie Andrews is like this woman that she looked up to. We went on this trip not knowing that it was her last. We went on this trip just like any other trip. We laughed, we enjoyed each other's company. And, when I got the call that she was hospitalized in a coma, yes, I was sad. But at the same time, gosh, I thought, how lucky am I to have really embraced to live the way that I did with her. And I thought, gosh, how finite is that? Just a week ago, I was just hanging out with her.
Mhm.
So I think that's the biggest shift when I look at life these days is, I don't take as many things as granted. And now I focus all my attention on my father. He's hanging around, we're looking to intentionally do more trips together and to spend more time together. And it doesn't have to be a grand trip to Austria, it can just be a very simple trip, a walk to the park, something we actually don't do enough.
Right. Right. What about love? What has it taught you about love?
It taught me that my capacity for love is so much bigger.
Mm.
I think I was super close to my mom. She's somebody that if I close my eyes and I had a question, what would mom do? I have the answer. I can imagine exactly how she would say something, exactly her perspective, as well as her reservation on any topics. And I think losing her made me understand how much empathy I have in my body for others and empathy for grief. I've heard this saying that grief is the receipt for love.
Mm.
And if you have grief, that means you have had love and have experienced love. And the deeper your grief, the deeper you've loved. I never understood that, just it was a cool quote. But I
Yeah.
think losing my mom, I felt that very deeply. And more so now than ever. My girlfriend jokes about this all the time because she's with me all the time. She say, since your mom's passing, I would often look at you and you'd have wet eyes. And I was like, yeah, it's because I feel so much. I feel for so many things and so many people. The empathy runs so deep.
That you just gave me a new perspective of grief. Wow. That is a great revelation for me to have because it explains how I see life now after experiencing that loss. Because now I try to lead with mindfulness how I would have wanted somebody to treat me when I was going through my grief, because people overlooked my grief because I lost a bonus daughter in 2020. So they would ask, how's your husband doing? How her siblings doing? Have you talked to her mom and stuff like that? I was always last to be checked on. And so now it's like I lead with what I would have wanted from other people during that time. And it has good days and bad days, as I'm sure you know. And I'm glad that you have your girlfriend. She sounds like an amazing person.
She is.
Yes. All right, so we're gonna, it can be a little heavy, but I wanted to talk about, I don't want to. We talk about loss, and we sometimes forget that the perfect example is what you just said. You had a great relationship with your mom, so you lean on those memories. You can close your eyes and hear what she would say or think in certain situations. So it is important that we don't forget about the people who have touched our lives in an amazing way by just acting like they didn't exist. Have you ever over encountered someone who made you feel like keeping your mom's legacy alive was like almost like a disservice to her?
Hmm. Luckily, not yet. I've been very lucky to be surrounded by people who see what I'm doing as, you know, honoring. I think honoring is the right word.
Hmm.
And I also, started putting myself out there much more with this. At first, I wasn't sure how my family would feel, right? I'm talking about these things. Dear mother, right? I have three siblings, so publicly, and the feedback's been great. I think I have the most supportive family. I have a very, very supportive inner circle, which I'm so grateful for.
Hmm.
And the first two podcasts, five podcasts that I did, it was a little cringy looking back at it, and now I've been able to get better at this and talk about this without completely losing composure. It's
Right.
still hard sometimes, but what I realize is that it is so good to feel so human. Like as I was sharing a few things with you earlier in a very short conversation so far, I felt this presence of kind of my mom agreeing with what I'm saying. And that's such a cool feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That is amazing. So we're gonna move to, let's talk about the app. Tell the people about it. When is it being released, and what inspired it? Let's talk about it. What is the name of it?
So my life's work now can be summed up in an application called Airlight. About a year and 4 months ago, I had a lunch with my mom and my dad, and I asked them, when would you guys like to retire? I think personally that you've made the last dollar that you would ever spend in your lifetime. And my mom said something that gave me an insight, which is she's like, what if I ran out of money before I die?
Mm,
A fear that is so real, especially for an immigrant who moved to Oklahoma when she was in her 20s, not speaking any English, work as a home cleaner and a restaurant cook and waitress, and I don't know how many more jobs she had. And that fear is just so deeply rooted in her. She spent all her life working and saving to take care of the people she loved that she didn't know how to spend, right? And and I think this is a conversation that opened up this topic about how would you like to spend instead of how would you like to continue to save until the day you die,
mhm,
not knowing that it was coming soon, right? So we had this conversation, and I built this little chatbot to talk to her, and the chatbot asked her questions like, what is a birthday gift that you really really cherish? Who gave it to you, right? And the stories behind it. And after a few months of this, I realized if I had all the information of the people she loves the most, that she cares about the most, the things that she treasured the most, I can organize all of that into a estate plan or a document that says who gets what, And so that's how the app started.
Okay.
What was very interesting for me is the joy that my mom had talking about this app to her friends. So she would go to her facial lady and she would, get her facial done, and they would, of course, talk about everything, including her kids and husbands and everything. And
Mhm.
she would come back to me and say, "Hey, this other lady at the facial, she told me that she's afraid to go to her attorney because her attorney is a friend of her husband's, and she didn't really have a say, right? She signed the documents, sure, but she didn't have a say. And she asked if my app can help her understand the meaning of these terms and these things. And I was like, yeah, of course, right? It's definitions of things, it's doable. And it really made me think about this topic not as legal documents, but as clarity. And that's where the anchor of the app comes in. We believe that clarity is love in practical form.
Mm. Wow. Clarity is love in practical form. Expound upon that a little bit, because I love that.
There's many things in our life that we put off, right? It's human nature to put off things that are important and do what is urgent. And this is just human nature. And so when we started building this about a year ago now, we thought, okay, let's create an app that says, complete your will in 25 minutes or 14 minutes. Like we got really good at it. We did this really fast. Some people did it in 7 or so minutes because they didn't have a lot of things and they knew exactly who to give everything to. But but then we got more and more users, and we learned many things. One of it was nobody really starts this process by thinking about things.
Hmm.
They think about people first.
Mm.
Amazing insight. What a human insight. The other thing we realize is that the reason why a lot of people put this off it is because of a proximity problem. Death feels far away, right? It feels abstract. And things that are far away, that are abstract, are easy to put off.
Hmm.
So we engineer this app, and I think engineer is the right word because it is user interface, user design, it's trust to bring this abstract thing, legal document, back to what is close to us, which is who do you care about the most? Who matters to you? And really, why do you even bother doing something like this? Right? Nobody wants to think about death, but we sure are a little bit selfless and want to think about leaving the people a little bit less overwhelmed when death does come. And so
Hmm.
we flip the script around, right? Clarity is what we're going for. The legal document is just a byproduct of this process.
Okay. Thank you. I get that. That totally makes so much sense now because yeah, we always think about people instead of things. Wow. Thank you for that, Jermaine. Thank you so much. You guys have been listening to another episode of Kicking It with KeKe, Life, Love, and Mindset. I am joined with a very special guest, Jermaine. He just talked about his app called Airlight. Tell everybody how they can connect with you. Where do you hang out on social media and all the things?
Yeah,
Website.
I have a one of one name. My name is Jermaine E. I'm named after Jermaine Jackson. I know the Jackson family is getting a lot of love right now because of the great film. Great job by Jafar Jackson, by the way,
Yes.
Jermaine's son,
Yes.
right? And I love that movie. Um, yeah, I'm Jermaine E everywhere, and Airlight is spelled Heirlight. And I'm gonna send you a link. So if anyone listening to this, you want to try it out, you'll get 50% off just by coming through Kiki. And thanks for giving me this platform to share my story. I hope if you don't start your estate plan today, start by journaling a few things that matter to you, and yeah, I think a little bit more intention living goes a long way.
Absolutely. And thank you for that. Thank you for the gift for the for the listeners today. I do appreciate it. All of that information will be also listed in the show notes. So we're going to go to the mic drop moment where I ask you a couple of questions and you just give your mic drop moment, right? Okay. What is one sentence about life you want people to remember?
The first thing that came to my mind is I was sitting at the Sistine Chapel last week listening to a book by Bonnie Ware. And in that book, it says she's a caretaker of end of life. The number one regret people have at the end of their life is that they wish they have the courage to live a life true to themselves.
Mm.
And that's what I want to leave with this audience today.
Wow. Okay. If I had a mic, I would really drop it because that was a mic drop moment, right? Okay. What is one truth about love everyone should understand?
I think one truth about love that everybody should understand that is that there is no one way of loving. That love comes in all shapes and sizes, ebbs and flows, depth and shallow, but all of it is valid.
I love that. See, I was not going to get emotional today, okay? But that right there just gave me chills because it is so, I've never heard it defined that way, and that was amazing. So thank you for that. I'm going to go and re-listen to that because that was a big, huge revelation for me about that. So thank you, Jermaine. Um, what mindset, belief can change someone's life?
That everything you know about this world is made up by people who are no smarter than you. It's said by
Mm,
Steve Jobs, but it is the truth.
absolutely. Final question. When life challenges you and love stretches you, what mindset keeps you grounded?
Just wake up the next day and do your best.
And there you have it. That has been the mic drop moment with Jermaine E. And thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. If this conversation resonated with you or spoke to you in any level, go ahead and subscribe and share it with a friend. Remember that your story has power, your voice has purpose, and your mindset can change everything. I am back every Thursday with a new episode on all major podcast streaming platforms. You can also watch it on YouTube. Thank you again for kicking it with KeKe, life, love, and mindset. Purple hug.